Let us look at 4 simple risk management techniques that are more than enough for the common investor. The first is diversification. The second is investment time horizons. Third, systematic investment. And fourth, reviews. Using these 4 simple tools, and every one of these tools, please note, is available to all investors absolutely free of charge. I always laugh when some stockbroker says, derivatives are risk management tools. From what I have seen, derivatives are risk enhancement tools, because the only thing they are not used for is risk management. They are used only for gambling. Second, derivatives do not come free. Every time you enter into a derivatives contract, there is a brokerage to be paid. So these are the genuine risk management tools, and these are available to every investor free of cost. Let us look at them one by one. The first is diversification. Diversification is a simple, effective, and a time-tested tool of risk management. It means the spreading or distribution of risk. Concentration is the opposite of diversification. Concentration increases and diversification decreases risk. To understand the importance of diversification, I have taken a beautiful passage from the book The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, which is absolutely the best ever book you can read on the stock market. This is from the commentary on the book, because Benjamin Graham died in 1976. In 2003, permission was given to Jazon Zweig, who is a brilliant writer, to update the book. So from that commentary, I have taken this passage on diversification, which is, I think till today from all my reading, this remains the single best passage that I have ever come across on diversification. Because he builds up his argument so well. He builds up his argument as if concentration is better. And then he explains how you look at it differently. So let us look at that passage. Andrew Carnegie, who is one of the famous businessmen of the US, he says, put all your eggs into one basket and then watch that basket. Do not scatter your shot. The great successes of life are made by concentration. What is diversification? Diversification is, do not put all your eggs in one basket. Now, Jazon Zweig is starting with a quotation from Andrew Carnegie, which says the exact opposite. Put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket. Do not scatter your shot. Scatter your shot is taken from a firearms concept. Well, if you know, very briefly to tell you, if you know the difference between a shotgun and a rifle has what is called a round, where there's only one piece of lead. So the lead comes out of the barrel at great speed, of course. It's given rifling is grooves, so it spins, and it has got a longer range. If that one piece of lead hits the target, you get the desired result. If it misses, it's gone. You have to try again. Scatter your shot means he's referring to something called a shotgun, where in the same cartridge you have sometimes 60 to maybe 100, 180 pieces of lead. And as they leave in a group, but as they cover, let's say 40, 50, 60 meters, they spread. So at least some pellets will hit the target. That's the difference. So that's what he's saying. Don't scatter your shot. Concentrate. The great successes of life are made by concentration. Then Jazon Zweig says, as Benjamin Graham points out, the really big fortunes from common stocks have been made by people who packed all their money into one investment they knew supremely well. Very often when you're in business, you can't diversify across 20, 30 businesses. You have to do and earn your money from what you're good at. Now, Simplus is good at investments, but it's an undiversified business. They earn from there. Now, people like this should realize that when they have their surpluses, the surpluses should go into diversified investments to build up safety on the resource front. Benjamin Graham points out the really big fortunes have been made by people from one business, and that business they knew very well. Nearly all the richest people in America trace their wealth to a concentrated investment in a single industry or even a single company. And he gives examples: Bill Gates and Microsoft, Sam Walton and Walmart, or the Rockefellers and Standard Oil. The Forbes 400 list of richest Americans, for example, has been dominated by undiversified fortunes ever since it was first compiled in 1982. So the Forbes 400 every year when they publish, you get. So he's quoting, he's saying most of the people when you read there, they are all undiversified fortunes. However, almost no small fortunes have been made this way, and not many big fortunes have been kept this way. They are businessmen, not investors. Secondly, when we examine deeper, have they been able to sustain? That's important. What's the use of suddenly being rich when you are 30 and 40, but very poor when you are 60 or 70? Can you sustain and grow your wealth? Then he says, what Carnegie neglected to mention is that concentration also makes most of the great failures of life. Look again at the Forbes rich list. Back in 1982, the average net worth of a Forbes 400 member was 230 million. This was the average net worth of a Forbes 400 in 1982, please remember. To make it to the 2002 Forbes 400, we are now talking about 20 years. If somebody had to remain on that list in 20 years, the average 1982 member needed to earn only a 4.5% average annual return on his wealth during a period when even bank accounts yielded far more than that, and the stock market gained an annual average of 13.2%. I am on the list in 1982. What should I do to continue to be on the list 20 years later? I must put my investments in any avenues that give me 4.5% annually, which in that period was supremely easy. Even if you had put in bank deposits, he said gave more. Stock market gave much more. Then he asks the question, so how many of the Forbes 400 fortunes from 1982 remained on the list 20 years later? That's when you get the true answer. Only 64 of the original 400 members, a measly 16%, were still on the list in 2002. It's not who was on the list. Were they able to sustain for 20 years? By keeping all their eggs in one basket that had gotten them onto the list in the first place, once booming industries like oil and gas or computer hardware or basic manufacturing, all the other original members fell away. They remained only on that. When hard times hit, none of these people, despite all the huge advantages that great wealth can bring, were properly prepared. They could only stand by and wince at the sickening crunch as the constantly changing economy crushed their only basket and all their eggs. Life is dynamic. The environment is dynamic. The economic environment is also equally dynamic. There are changes that take place. Most of the changes we cannot control. By remaining there, they were not able to anticipate. It does not mean that they became paupers. Very few would have been. But they could not retain their position on the Forbes 400 once they had got there. No ordinary investor will try for that. But the point here that he's making is, if you are not diversified, you may not have that kind of sustaining power. We have to invest. We have to slowly and steadily grow financially secure. And we should take steps to see that that financial security is not compromised. And for that, diversification is absolutely essential. So this is a beautiful passage by Jazon Zweig from his commentary in The Intelligent Investor. And Carl Richards presents it really beautifully. This is what diversification. You may never make a killing. You will also never get killed. Where these two circles intersect, you have diversification. When you have got your money here in different kinds of investments. Some will do very well, but not as much as if you had all the money in one thing where you are lucky. At the same time, if you had everything in something which was unlucky, you would be finished. That also will not happen to you. Some will do well, others will not do well. At the end of the day, you will have a net return on your portfolio that is more than enough to provide your financial security as you progress through life. When we talk about diversification in real estate, keeping on buying flats makes no sense. Even if you love real estate, it makes sense if your first purchase has been a house and compound. Your next purchase, a flat, is fine. The two are different. Your third should be neither of these. Maybe a shop. Maybe if you can afford it, a godown. If you are qualified for it, some kind of agricultural land. You can diversify across cities. I'm not saying you should go to distant. One person I knew had something in Bangalore, something in Mysore because his wife was from there, something in Bangalore. Till the extent that he could find it comfortable to manage. Yes, he earns from his Bangalore property, I think 2 properties itself. The rent that comes in is more than enough for his expenses. And this he has built over a long period of time, maybe 3-4 decades. But there was some diversification. So once again, having everything in one place, having the same kind of thing again, if some policy comes that affects a particular type of real estate property, you're gone. Diversification in bank deposits. One thing I told you is in an emergency fund context, maybe several small deposits instead of one large deposit. But from the point of view of safety, now we are looking at risk management here. Few are aware that each bank depositor is covered under deposit insurance only to the extent of rupees 1 lakh per bank for all accounts held in the same capacity and the same right. These are the important words. For all accounts held in the same capacity and the same right. I'll give you some examples, you'll understand. So, if A has 25,000 in a savings account, 50,000 in a current account, 1 lakh in an FD, 75,000 in a recurring deposit. If you total it up, probably comes to 2.5 lakhs. Bank goes bad. Your total claim is limited to only 1 lakh. Your accounts may be different, but same capacity and same right. Why? A, sole name and only one person and the same person. Today so easy to identify by PAN card also. Same capacity and same right. You can have different accounts, you can have in different branches, no problem. Total claim is only 1 lakh. If the same example, each of those accounts in a different bank, situation would be totally different. Not that he'll have to go filing 4 claims. No. The possibility that 4 banks may collapse at the same time is remote. That is diversification. It's not depending on insurance. It is just depending upon the spreading of risk. One more example. A, B and C have several different accounts, SB current, RD, etc. in the same or different branches of the same bank in their joint names. And the amounts in all accounts total 3 lakhs. ABC, ABC, ABC everywhere. The deposit insurance will be limited to only 1 lakh. Why? Same bank, branches are immaterial. Same capacity and right, A, B, C in everything. Only 1 lakh. Now, next example. A and B have a bank account and B and A have another account in the same bank. Now, you can have 2 claims for 1 lakh each. Why? A and B holding is different from B and A holding. In India, whether for tax or for investments, where there are joint holders, in the absence of very, very solid evidence about who contributed originally to the asset, it is assumed that the second holder is there only for convenience. The first holder is the owner. So if A and B is different from B and A, yes, the 2 same persons, but it is not AB, BA. Two claims can be given. If there is one account in the sole name of A with a balance of rupees 2 lakhs in it, and another account in the joint names of A and B with a balance of 50,000 in the same or different branches of the bank, then two claims, the first for 1 lakh and the second for 50,000 can be lodged. Why? It is not the same capacity and right. A is different from A jointly with B. Even though he is the first holder, in one it's a sole holding, one it's a joint holding. Joint holding is a different capacity and different right. Just some examples. More information if you want, free of cost available, dicgc.org.in, Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation of India website. They will give you some more information about this. The point I'm trying to make is, if somebody has got 40 lakh rupees to be kept in bank deposits, you don't have to go to 40 different banks and put 1 lakh there. You want 8 banks, 5 lakhs, fine. You want even 4 or 5 banks, divide that 40 lakhs. 8 5s are 40, 5 banks, 8 lakhs each. It's fine. You have taken a gigantic step towards reducing your risk in case of bank default. Nothing to do with deposit insurance. It has everything to do with the fact that 5 reasonably good banks may not fail at the same time. And that is diversification. The limit of rupees 1 lakh, just for your information, includes principal and interest, please note. A claim can be filed with the DICGC only when the bank is allowed to go into liquidation or amalgamated with another bank. This may take time. It's just because you didn't get your interest or deposit back doesn't mean next day you'll get your money from the insurance corporation. Now the RBI will step in, there will be a committee appointed, there will be investigation, then the RBI will come to a conclusion. What to do? Should we wind up the bank? Should we give this bank to another much bigger and stronger bank and say amalgamate with it, like what happened to Global Trust Bank some years back? It had RBI said nothing doing and gave it to Oriental Bank of Commerce. Shareholders got nothing, but depositors were protected. So many things may happen. This may take several months. In that period, you have no control over your principal, you will not get interest. So it's not so simple. And deposit insurance is deposit insurance, please note. If you want to be insured, what have you to do? After buying your policy, you have to pay regular premium. If you have failed to pay your premium, you are not covered. How do you as a depositor know that your bank is paying deposit insurance premium? In the case of cooperative banks, which failed in Gujarat some years back, thousands of cooperative banks failed. Lakhs of fixed depositors were affected. But when they tried to file their claims before the DICGC, it was found that a huge number of banks had not paid premium. So the insurance company was happy. Not paid premium, sorry, no claims. But the insurance premium is not to be paid by the depositor. It's to be paid by the bank. So how do you as a depositor know that the insurance premium is being paid? These are all questions that we should be aware of. On diversification, Harry Markowitz, who was an immigrant to the United States, he won the Nobel Prize in Economics for showing that a portfolio diversified across non-correlated investments significantly reduced risk. That which you loan is different from that which you own. Beautiful way of segregating between debt and equity. I have invested in the PPF. What have you done? It is nice to say I have invested in the PPF. No, you have given a loan to the government of India. Your money goes to the government in the guise of the PPF account. And for that loan that is given to you, the government of India has two obligations. It has to pay you interest, and at some point of time it has to repay you the principal. It's a loan. Bank deposit, we call it deposit. It's not a deposit. It's a loan given by you to the bank. Bank has to pay you interest. Bank may in turn give a housing loan. That borrower has to pay the bank interest. Difference between what they get and what they pay is the spread. From that they deduct expenses, and I hesitate to say make a profit when you see the bank's balance sheets now, but they are supposed to make a profit. We'll put it that way. So Harry Markowitz said that which you own, so a debt instrument is totally different from that which you own, where you have got an ownership interest, either in your business or in a company share. I am a shareholder of L&T, I am a part owner of L&T. However small, I am a part owner with L&T. With about 1,500 rupees, I can purchase one share of L&T, and that one miserable share costing 1,500 rupees makes me a part owner of L&T. That's a miracle of modern finance, that such a facility can be given. This was what Harry Markowitz said, and he gave us a very, very important insight into diversification. Now let's go to another very, very important insight. We have got all these notions of risk. I'm trying to tell you how real risk is so different from what we see in textbooks. Look at this graph. It's a very simple graph. This is somebody who has got 100% of his or her money in bonds. At the other extreme, 100% in stocks. This is risk. This is return. Now all of us have heard the term higher the risk, higher the return, correct? So you have got stocks, you get a return of about this much, high. You have got 100% bonds, you are somewhere here 5% or 4.5%. Now in between our portfolios, this is 75 stock, 25 bond, 50-50, 75 bond, 25 stock, etc., etc. Right? So this is the actual situation that takes place in world finance. If you are going to be a long-term investor in stocks, this will be your position. You will be taking a higher risk, but you will also get a higher return. Exact opposite if you have got everything in bonds. Now I am inviting your attention not to this whole curve, only to one small portion here. At this point we have got 100% bonds. As we go up, little bit of stocks come in, little bit more, till here 25% of stocks have come. Ordinarily you would have thought that the graph would go something like this, but you have a different curvature, and this curvature, if you see, actually slides a little bit to the left, which means as you add a very small quantity of stocks, this is risk, you see. So if you are pulling in this direction, the risk is decreasing, not increasing. Understand this, and now let us, in the light of what we have seen here, let us understand what William Bernstein is saying in the beautiful book called The 4 Pillars of Investing. The behavior on the left side of the graph is truly remarkable. If you start with an all bond portfolio, adding small amounts of stock increases return as expected. However, adding a small amount of stock also decreases the portfolio risk slightly, with the minimum risk portfolio consisting about 7% stock. A stock position of 12% produces the same risk as the all bond portfolio. This is something absolutely remarkable, and this is the magic of diversification, non-correlated diversification. What he is saying here is that if you want safety, you want to be safe, it will be very foolish for you to have an all bond portfolio. And what he is saying here is, if you have 93% in bonds and 7% in stocks, that is less risky than 100% in bonds. Can we ever think of it? Next, what he is saying is, if you have 88% in bonds and 12% in stocks, the same risk as a 100% bond portfolio. So, going forward, thus the investor whose sole aim is to minimize risk must of some necessity own some stock. This is a phenomenon we shall encounter repeatedly in our study of portfolio behavior. For us it is so easy to say, oh no, stock market risky. But asset allocation is something entirely different. When you talk about asset allocation, especially if the two assets do not move together, when you amalgamate them into a portfolio, you can actually reduce risk. And you can reduce risk in ways that you can never dream of. John Templeton says, the only investors who shouldn't diversify are those who are right 100% of the time. So if you are God, you need not diversify. Anything less than that, we better diversify. Jazon Zweig, to keep investing from decaying into gambling, you must diversify. He says if you have not diversified, it is gambling. Burton Malkiel, the investor whose wise diversifies. So we started with Warren Buffett, we will end with Warren Buffett. Risk comes from not knowing what you are doing, he said. Risk comes from ignorance. And one more slide now to complement this. Again, Warren Buffett, diversification is a protection against ignorance. Risk comes from ignorance. Risk comes from not knowing what you are doing. Diversification is a protection against ignorance.